Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Mesa City Council study session for the afternoon of May the 3rd. I believe all of our council is present, but we have Mr. Thompson and Mr. Luna on Zoom.
So far, I see Mr. Luna.
Okay. So far, just Mr. Luna. We will look forward to the possible arrival of Mr. Thompson. Okay, the first item on our agenda for this meeting is to review and discuss items on the agenda for our meeting later tonight. Council, I know we went over this on Thursday. Are there any items on the agenda that you would like to ask for additional information on? Vice Mayor.
I don't want to take these items off consent, but I wanted to review for constituent purposes items for B, about the increase on the flooring at the Mesa Arts Center, and for D, about the camera systems.
For B and D.
B and D.
Okay.
So if we could do just a quick Q&A thing.
So is there a specific question on 4B?
For D,
Oh, D.
yeah,
Not for B also?
also,
Oh, okay. What was,
B and D.
what is there a specific question about 4B?
Bees and boy?
B as in boy.
Bees and boy.
Sorry.
The increase was from 600,000 to 1.1 million, and the reason for the large increase for year 3. Or was it is an increase? I'm trying to read this real quick.
So,
Mayor and Vice Mayor Duff, the increase is for the 3rd year, and it's specifically related to replacing the flooring, excuse me, at the Mesa Arts Center. So it's a one-time increase for this contract period.
I think what we've done is we've accelerated, while we were closed, we decided to go ahead and do both theaters at the same time. So in the
Okay.
past, I think we had certain allocated each year.
Correct.
So now we've decided, hey, they're closed, so let's do the work now. So we've accelerated the work, and that's increased our,
Okay.
what we've allocated for facilities improvements at the MAC.
Okay. And I assume we went through a call for vendors as far as how the vendor was selected, on the JRC.
Correct. So Mayor, Vice Mayor Duff, the increase is for the entire master agreement, which covers multiple vendors. And we're in the process now of soliciting both material and installation bids specifically for that job.
Okay, all right, so we're going through that process, and the increase was to cover an additional theater that we did.
Yeah, I would say the way we've accelerated the replacements because we figured this was the time to do it. Instead of waiting till a time when we're back open, we would do both of them now. And so we're, both the Piper and the Akita will have, and we're also changing out the seating.
The seating.
So that
So
was,
the
we thought that
timing
was a
is-
better timing to do that. Especially in the Akita, we had some real challenges with the seating that needed to be replaced.
Great, thank you. And then on 4D, as in dog, about the camera systems, I had a constituent ask, will they have facial and license plate recognition abilities? And there's some other questions, but that's one that I didn't know the answer.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Duff, I do not believe these cameras will have the ability to do facial recognition or license plate recognition at this time.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And I know as far as, the questions on experience, I know in my district in Alma School in Maine and Pioneer Park, we've used those and had great success in reducing crime.
So,
recognizing-
Councilor Dove, let's just distinguish. That is 4E
Okay,
are the platform cameras.
okay, sorry.
4D as in dog are a different type of camera.
Okay.
So the ones we talked about last week with Assistant Chief Wessing and about,
Okay,
I believe
That's
I'm
E.
correct on that, right? The four remotes are the ones similar to the one we had in Pioneer Park.
Correct.
okay. So, to back up on these camera systems, sorry, this came in last minute, and I'm trying to catch up with the questions. Can you just give me an overview of this, because I had my mind in a different place?
Or on the.
4D.
D?
The backpack.
Okay, the backpack one, sorry.
Talk about 4E, is that correct?
D is in dog,
D.
the one's right
The
before.
backpack cameras.
These are the, yeah. David dog, whatever.
You want me to take it? You don't know?
Yeah, go ahead, I'm not positive on that one. I have a different 4D.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Chief Wessing is not here right now, and I'm trying to look at 4D and try to distinguish what. Purchase 3 rapidly deployed.
If we don't have, I know we have a limited schedule today. If we don't have time to go into it, you know, or don't have, need to contact Commander
Thank you,
Wessing.
Vice Mayor.
Okay,
These are the camera systems that are the deployable ones, the ones that we can move from place to place, and these are the ones that we're gonna, we use for like large-scale events, or for instance, the Phoenix Marathon, or during the 2020 political events, we were able to use those for deployments and to have a calming effect and to lessen the police response.
And these are tied into the regional partners that will do special events. So it's encrypted, so it's kept, you know, it's so that they only public safety can see it. It's used across the region, and that's why these funds are being paid for by the federal government. So they're intended to be kind of a, it's an existing system,
Right.
but it's deployable for these kind of high volume events. But they're deployed at the time of the event. The ones after that in 4E are placed in a park with lights and it's a big tower that goes up. These are more strategic and can be used for big events and can be used in combination with, I think, Phoenix and Tempe and some of the other cities, according to the report.
not to go on this too far, 'cause I know we're on time today, but I can circle back with you later and to get more detail. We used it in a system like this in 2020 when we had protests, or what experience have we had in Mesa?
Correct. We have used, Vice Mayor, we have used these systems and for events such as, like I said, the 2020 political situations or political, during the political season. We're able to deploy those to areas where that manage ingress, to manage populations inside that, so that we don't have to send officers into the area. And like the city manager said, we're able to pipe that feed directly to the decision makers, if you will, in the command center.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Council, other questions regarding tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none. The next item on our agenda for this meeting is to hear a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on the following budget departments. That would be our Mesa Municipal Court budget and the code compliance budget. Welcome, Judge Tats. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Take this off and, all right, there we go. All right, good evening, Mayor, council members. I am presiding Judge John Tatz. I just want to take a second to introduce my management team. To my left is Sean Hott. He's our new court administrator. Been with us for a couple months, took him from Superior Court, brings exceptional experience, energy, enthusiasm. We're really excited to have him. Hiding in the back are the other four. We have Deputy Court Administrator Robin Dunham, who's been a real Swiss Army knife for us with all our retirements and people leaving. Someone leaves, she took over for them and just did an exceptional job. The one area she didn't have to was over customer service, where Acting Court Administrator Loretta Daniels has been running that, and she's been doing a great job as well. Last month, we got our new management assistant too, Kristen Ford, who we're real excited to have. She has a lot of experience with the city and some other departments. And then just today, we had Deputy Court Administrator Lisa Porter start. Got her from Superior Court as well. She's here on her very first day. So this is the first time since I've taken over we've had our full management team in place. And so I think we're going to do some real exciting things. For tonight's presentation, Sean's going to take the first half and I'll take the second half. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sean. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay there? So thank you for having us. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. As you can see on the board there, our mission statement is, as the judicial branch of the government, it is our mission to administer fair and impartial justice. We are committed to providing efficient, accurate, consistent, and accessible services. And I can attest that in my 2.5 months there at the court, I have seen this mission statement come to life not only in word but in deed. They truly, the Mesa Municipal Court truly practices what it preaches. The next slide for the financial summary. The column on the left is really sort of a point of reference to kind of explain or give you some idea of what we're looking at for the current year, what we thought we were going to spend, what we expended, and what we plan to expend in the following year. You'll notice under expenditures and revenues, there's two things and I'd like to explain them. And you see court operations and business operations, and I want to explain the difference. Court operations, those are the wages. That's what's going on inside the courtroom, what it costs to have the courtroom. So it's the wages and the employee-related expenses for the judges and for the courtroom staff. And it's also for the non-grant funded pro tem judges, so which would be all the pro tems except for those in arraignment court. It's also for legal research subscriptions and educational materials. For jury summons, we have to pay the Maricopa County to administer our jury summons, and it's for the credit card merchant fees and court transcript fees. Under business operations, that is for everything else, everything outside the courtroom. It's the administrative staff. It's the customer service crew. It's also for process service fees and for shredding fees. In this next section, the revenues, I want to talk a little bit about the term court revenue. And I know that the people around this table are well aware of this principle that I'd like to shed some light on. But it's for the public that listening, that will watch this later. I want them to understand this principle. In 2014, as you're well aware, there's a young African-American man, 18-year-old, in Ferguson, Missouri, who was killed by a white police officer, which caused a lot of distress and commotion and some terrible events. The Department of Justice, during their subsequent investigation of this event, they determined and they witnessed and uncovered and unveiled a lot of ugliness, a lot of corruption and some unethical practices, not only by the Ferguson Police Department, but specifically with the Ferguson Municipal Court. They found that this municipal court was so focused on revenue generation that this fundamentally compromised the role of the court. So I know that while we do collect court fees, fines, and restitution as a court, that is not our responsibility. That's not our role. Our role is to administer and deliver justice. So with that having been said, I want to look at the revenues. Again, under revenues, court operations. That's going to be, you see $60,000 kind of across the board there for this, what we thought we'd bring in, and what we did bring in, what we plan to bring in next year. And that is a grant-funded, it's a grant fund called Fill the Gap, and that is to pay for our pro tem judges that are in arraignment court. So it'll be consistently $60,000. Under the business operations, that is, those are revenues from the public defender fee, the criminal fines, civil fines, and defensive driving classes. The significant changes for FY22, the implementation of upgraded conference bridge system to allow for better telephonic hearings. Prior to this, I did not experience this, but there is an antiquated system. I guess it was the equivalent of an 8-track player, which allowed really anyone to come in, tap into the phone call, mute the judge, people from home. I mean, it was a real disaster. But this now allows the judicial officer to be the gatekeeper of the people coming in. He can have people come in, he or she can have people come into the waiting room, and as the hearing's done, exit them out of the phone call and go for it. So that's one of the things we did. Of the 8 courtrooms, we reconfigured one of them for jury trials. So they can be socially distanced. There's plexiglass between the 6 jurors. Also plexiglass for the courtroom clerks and for the witnesses. So that was a big improvement to allow us to roll forward with our jury trials. And the implementation of the fees, fines, and restitution enforcement program, FAIR, which I'll get to on the next slide. And then Judge Tapps will talk to us about the defensive driving school fee increasing by $10. So FAIR, the Fines, Fee, and Restitution Enforcement Act. This is a statewide initiative that was created by the judicial branch, and it's created to assist the Arizona courts in the collection of court-ordered fees. Again, civil traffic, and criminal violations. And this is a partnership between the administrative offices of the courts, the Motor Vehicle Division, Arizona Department of Revenue, a private vendor, and also once it goes into effect, probably August, a new law that will also partner with the Arizona Lottery. We, as a municipal court, we implemented the FAIR program on February 26th of this year. And we had approximately 125,000 backlog cases that there was money owed in excess of $50 on each one of these. And so we uploaded all those, referred those all to the FAIR program, all 125,000 backlog cases. Going forward, as we have a fee, fine, or a restitution payment that is 30 days beyond the due date, after we've made 3 attempts to contact the person, we will then refer them to the FAIR program. I want to talk a little bit about the fees, the additional fees that kind of compel people to participate or to at least respond to these. As soon as we refer it, there's a $49 fee assessed to the case balance. Then, once they get the notice, once we refer it to FAIR, within 48 hours, FAIR will send out a notice letting the people know, hey, you owe this money. If 30 days have passed and there's been no payment contract created, they will send out a second warning, also warning them about the TTEP program, which is a program with the MVD that prevents the person from renewing any sort of registration. They can register new vehicles, but a current vehicle or boat or motorcycle, they cannot renew that registration. 15 days after that, if they still have not replied or have not created a contract payment program, a 19.5% fee will be assessed to the already owing balance. And then delinquency notices will continue beyond will continue until a payment contract is set up. Also, it is set up to intercept tax refunds. And as soon as House Bill 27, it's signed by the governor, 2772 goes into effect, that's ARS 5-1320, that will also intercept any lottery winnings in excess of $600. And those will be, they'll intercept those funds as well. And that's all I have.
Well, as Sean stated, obviously it's not our mission to collect revenue, but this is a budget presentation after all, and these are just a couple things that we think are going to incidentally increase our revenue. One is FAIR. The other is a defensive driving school fee increase. We did a survey of the East Valley courts, the other ones, and we were the lowest by anywhere from $10 to $20. I'm sure none of you directly know, but indirectly, you might know that if you get a speeding ticket, a moving violation of some sort, rather than fight it or pay it, you can actually go to a class to have the points off your record and the case dismissed. Some of that fee goes to the general revenue. Our share has been $120 for quite a while. Every April and October we can look at it. We looked at it in April, looked at the other courts and said we're going to bump that up to $130, which should increase revenue based on the number of cases we've generally had by about $10,000 a month. Talking to you about community court for a little bit, because I know council's always been very supportive and interested in community courts. I just kind of want to give you a little bit of an update on where we are with that. As you can see from this graph, when the pandemic really hit March, April, a lot of citations weren't being filed, a lot of cases weren't being filed, so the numbers obviously went way down. You can then see a huge spike in June of 2020, and as you know, that's when Mesa Police started their Off the Streets program, and one of the aspects of that program was to cite cases into community court, and we saw a huge spike from what we were used to in there. We opened community court back up. We've been handling the cases, and as you can see, it's kind of leveled off the number of cases that we're getting. Our graduates, when we were shut down, community court was shut down for a few months, obviously were nothing, but when we've come back up, we started having them again. Graduates of our community court program, they have to show us that they've successfully turned their situation around so that they're not going to get the type of cases that brought them to the court in the first place. We're talking about trespassing, possession of drug paraphernalia, parks violations, things like that. So these are people that showed us, we were confident that They've gotten housed, they've addressed substance abuse issues, they've gotten employment, whatever we felt they needed to do to turn the situation around and not get cases. That's what that graduate, the graduate line is showing. It's lower than it's been in the past because we've really had a hard time getting people to come back to court. We've been hitting about 25% of attendance in community court, and as you know, with that population, we're generally going to have a lower appearance rate. We're usually around 50%. I can tell you, just having run from there this afternoon, we were as close to 50% as we've been. I didn't get a chance to count the numbers, but I really think we're starting to spin everything back up, which is great to see because we really can help a lot of these people and help with MESA's efforts towards helping homeless find homes and help them get off the streets. Real quick, just with the performance measures, abandoned call rate for customer service, our target is we want 5% or less of the people who call in to hang up before they're helped. That was actually down to 4% over the last fiscal year. Our customer service people are doing an excellent job. Web users are not as high as our target, as you can see, 17,000 instead of 24,000. But if you look at the telephone interactive voice response, the automated system, the target's 14,000, the number was actually 24,000. And we think that reflects the fact that people are just, they're going to the phone. They're getting more help from the phone than they are from the web. And then finally, our case time to disposition, we want 98% of all cases to resolve within 6 months or 180 days. We're almost back there to 96% as of March of 2021. So we think we're doing a really good job with that. And with that, I know there's a lot on the calendar today, so we are through with our presentation. Any questions for Sean or myself?
Thank you, gentlemen. Council questions for these folks? Vice Mayor.
I'll pose a couple of questions. Again, if it runs into a lot more detail, I can follow up with you later. If a person can't pay, do we have payment programs? Do we have alternatives if they financially just can't get caught up with their fines and their compounding now?
Absolutely. One thing that my predecessor, Judge Tafoya, started, and I fully support and we will continue to do as long as I'm presiding judge, is we will not put anybody in jail for not being able to pay a fine. We recognize that there's going to be issues, there's going to be situations. Any court should be looking to make sure that it's a willful non-payment before they jail them. We're just not going to go there unless it's restitution. If it's restitution owed to victims, we'll give them a court date. If they don't make it, then they may face jail. But we have time payment fees for our time payment contracts for anybody who asks. Cases come out of FAIR, so if we do our internal collection efforts and we're not able to get our money, then we turn it over to FAIR. But they can get it back from FAIR just by making a small, good faith down payment, getting on a payment plan. It'll wipe out that extra 20% right then and there. They'll go back to their prior fine and fee plus the $49, which doesn't go away. And then they work directly with us instead of with FAIR. So yes, we recognize those issues and we will always work with people as long as they're coming in and working with us, of course.
Are service hours ever an option in this case?
That is one of the things I really want to get started up again, because ever since I became a judge, which has been almost 5 years now, that has not been. We have not had a system. It's in the statutes. You can work community restitution, it's now called, prior community service. You can get $10 towards your fine per hour that you work. I would love to start something up like that. We have people in our courts that ask for that, and we just don't have it in our system right now to do that, Vice Mayor. But that is one of the things I'd really like to come to you next year and tell you we're doing now.
That'd be great. I'd be very interested in that. And the last question I had, I noticed the graduation, the cases were up significantly in June of 20, you know, when we get a little bit post the shutdown. But our graduation rates actually fell below. You said that it was difficult to have people come back. I mean, we are approaching a lot of people with that option, right? Any comment about how we can better the graduation rates?
Well, I'm actually glad you asked. You approved about a year ago 2 new navigators for our community court through Community Bridges, our nonprofit, great nonprofit that we work with. One of them just started today and the other just started a couple weeks ago. So our hope with that is they can get out on the streets and do a better job of outreaching some of the people who may have lost track of their court dates and not know about their court dates, get them back into court so we can help them. Obviously, when they weren't coming in, we weren't able to graduate them. Right. Now that they're coming back, we hope that that number is going to start to go up as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Spilsbury.
Just curious, is the reason you're not doing the service program is because you don't have the program in place, or you don't have the employees to run the program, or what? Why haven't you been able to? We
absolutely have the employee in place. We're back up to almost fully staffed. That's certainly not the issue, and the statute allows for it. We just need to have the program started. It's one of those things that it's been gone since I've been a judge, but it's something that I'm very interested in doing. We just, now that we're fully staffed, we've got our management team in place, I hope that's something we can get spun up very shortly. Council member, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman, do you have a question?
Sure, Mayor. I was, thank you for asking. Read my mind. I was intrigued by your defensive driving fee increase, and I'm trying to do the math. You said it would increase the budget by $10,000 a month, so you're getting at least 1,000 citations a month somewhere to get that type of
I've got to, council member, I've got to trust my people that they gave me correct numbers, but I would assume that's the case, yeah. And that's the number of people that actually go to defensive driving school. So people without even coming to court, you know, the officer gives them a ticket. One of their options right then and there is to just sign up for the class. So we don't see them, they don't come in, and they actually can go to the class, pay the money, and have the ticket dismissed as long as they haven't been within the past year. So I would assume that that's an accurate statement.
So that, does it include the red light cameras too in intersections? Is
It
that
does. It
inclusive
includes,
of that?
council member, includes the photo safety for both speeding and the red light cameras, as well as any officer-issued tickets for moving violations.
Yeah, so in my brain, I'm just thinking, how can we make more awareness in the community to not speed and get citations, right? I mean, the whole thing is to reduce or to increase safety in our community and where we live. And sounds like our officers are doing a great job, but our people who live and work and drive are not obeying speed limits. So I'm going to be very cautious from not here on out. Thank you.
Thank you, council member.
Mr. Reddy.
On the FAIR program, did you say this is an internal program that we use staff, or is it a third party that we use to have this program?
It's a third party working in conjunction with us, council member. Think of it as like a state court collection agency is really what it is. It's not a private collection agency, but they use a collection agency called Conduent, and they're the ones who actually, we do our internal collection efforts first. When those have been exhausted, we turn it over. So our customer service people still work with them. And again, if somebody comes into us and says, I can put $20 down on this, we're going to take their $20, we'll set them up on the payment plan, dump the collection fees, and as long as they stay on the payment plan, they avoid the collection agency.
And what's the process as far as timeline when a person fails internally that we communicate with them that they're turned into this program?
So we'll reach out to them. If it's owed to our court, we will try to contact them. Once 30 days has passed, it'll be with beyond due. Well, 30 days, and then we'll still make 3 more attempts to contact them. And only then would we refer them to the FAIR program.
Okay.
I had one question pop into my head while you were speaking earlier. The last time I visited your court, I was impressed with that it's essentially a paperless system. It was my impression. And one of the comments I heard from you earlier in terms of expenses was shredding. And so I assume it's impossible to not generate some amount of paperwork. And so can you just reconcile that for me?
Sure. From community court, for example, I print out the calendar. All the people that are part of the community court team print out the calendar. We don't have laptops or iPads to give to everyone around the staffing table, so we print out those calendars. I take my notes on those. You know, just based on that, I'm sure we've got other paper, obviously all the citations that come in. Police reports get printed for one reason or another. There's just things that do. Our case management system is completely paperless. We don't have files, Mayor, like a lot of courts do, you know, paper files that we use, but certainly there's still paper there that needs to be shredded for safety.
That makes sense. All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Luna, any questions on your end?
No questions, Mayor, from me.
Thank you, David.
I just want to do one shout out to support for domestic violence court, if we can look into that going forward, in my personal opinion. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, I actually visited the Gilbert Domestic Violence Court a few weeks ago, and I also talked with someone who runs one in Tucson, and I'm very interested in doing that as well.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome to those who are new on the staff. And again, we're very proud of our court. We appreciate the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next, I think we are scheduled to hear from our Code Compliance Office.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Ryan Russell with Code Compliance for the highly anticipated Code Compliance budget presentation, simply because we're the last group, I'm told. We'll just start out with the numbers here for us quickly. As you can see in this fiscal year, as many departments did, we had some vacancy savings that allowed us to operate under budget. I am proud to say that in the last month, we've promoted one of our ASAs up into code officer, and she's excited about that. And then we've hired 2 new code officers also, so we do not anticipate any vacancy savings this year. We'll be operating, by the end of the month, we'll be at full tilt. Some of our things that you'll see the numbers are a little higher on, which is our other services for this year. There were a couple things that caused our budget to spike a little bit in a few areas. 2 predominantly things there. One was our service of citations. We use an outside process server to serve all of our citations. We find it to be a safe and effective model, but there is some cost associated with it. And then our civil hearing officer, we did see an increased number in hearings also that she conducted for us. But some of our challenges and successes we've had this year, one of them is this year was our voluntary compliance rate, which is we go out and we see violations, we send off a notice of violation, and hopefully citizens, when we go back 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, they've rectified that situation, they've abated those violations. We like to see it a little higher than 62%. That is within our goals, but I usually like to see it a little bit higher. In comparison, in our Team Up to Clean Up projects, which we talk about so often, we're roughly at 92% compliance rate on those. So we've shown that when we, I don't want to say hold people's hand, but when we offer them the resources, we go out and we knock on doors and we make those contacts, that voluntary compliance rates goes up. And why is it important is because it has so much fiscal impact on a lot of the other things that we do when our voluntary compliance rates go down. As you can see, we had over 2,000 citations this year. Now that doesn't compare to the 1,000 a month that we just heard about from the courts, but it is an increase for us this year. I think part of that was our customer service model that we adapted to allow us to continue to operate during COVID. Very early on, Mr. Brady asked us to find a model that allowed us to operate, and what we did in order to continue to go with our code compliance was we used to go knock on the door and talk to people and say, hey, tell me about the car in your front yard or the weeds in your yard, and we weren't able to do that. So we simply mailed those notices of violations out. Hopefully in the near future, we're going to get back into that customer service model so that our compliance rates will come up and our citations will go down. But when we saw citations go up, we also saw our civil hearings go up. And although we did them all telephonically, which we've learned is a very effective model that we're probably going to continue to do even as we return to some sense of normal. We still did 350 hearings this year. Along with hearings and citations come liens, and we had over 200 liens this year. Now liens are obviously they go to a hearing or they abate their citation, or default on their citation. And then after a period of time, if they don't pay it, then we have the ability to put a lien on the property. We don't do it with all of our cases, only a percentage of them. But as a result, we've seen our revenues up 279%. This all isn't just because of citations. One of the things is a good thing that caused our revenues to come up was the liens I talked about. A lot of our old liens from the last 5-10 years were paid off this year because our real estate market was so healthy. So a lot of the properties sold, as well as people refinanced their house because interest rates were low. We saw almost daily title companies would call us for payoff requests for, hey, we're doing a refinance, we're selling this property. So a lot of our old liens were paid off, ranging anywhere from $100 upwards to, I think our highest was $30,000 for the year. And then one of the things we're doing to influence our compliance rates is we've been working with Performance Excellence and a group out of Canada, Behavior Institute of Technology, which they've developed our violation letter that we send out. We have our old version, then we have a new version that they've made some changes to, and we're currently in the middle of a study where our system automatically generates the 2 different versions based on odd and even number cases, and we're going to see if we can influence our compliance rates based on changing our model of our letter. Team Up to Cleanup projects. This is kind of our baby that we tout a lot, in particular in this
Hey, Mayor?
year.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Luna?
So, thank you, Mayor. Ryan, is it the language of the letter? Do you think that's causing a change, or what is it in the letter that's different?
So Mayor and Councilmember Luna, one of the things we changed was we changed some of the verbiage in there. We also put in there a little clearer consequences for their time frame. Hey, here's your time frame. We also put in bold letters, clear how to contact if you need additional time, if there's some circumstances that are preventing you from abating these violations. Here's the contact officer for your code officer. So we should have that at the end of May is when the study is done. We should have that data back, and I'd be happy to come back to council with the results of that to see exactly if we were able to influence people's behavior at all.
Well, it'd be interesting to see it. It doesn't sound like it's real threatening. Was your previous letter a little bit more threatening than the one you're going to be sending? It'd be nice to just get a copy of this new one to see what it's like, what it looks like.
Yes, we could provide both copies, and we'll show you.
Maybe before you move on, I had a similar question. So we issued 2,000 more citations this year than the previous year?
No, Mayor, just
A total
2,000
of
citations total, yeah.
So what type of an increase is that over the previous year?
Mayor, we were roughly at about 1,600 the previous year, so
Okay.
20%, somewhere in that range.
And I think you attributed that to the fact that it was more difficult to work with people and to hold their hand and say, we don't want to issue a citation, can you please make these changes, or what can we do to help you make these changes? Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, it was obviously, because of COVID, it was much more difficult to communicate with people, in person in particular. So what we normally like to do is do exactly what you talk about, is communicate with them. Is there something going on here that we can help you with? Can we get you some resources? And because of the limitations on COVID, we just didn't have that luxury this year. That we're looking forward to doing that again.
Okay. So that doesn't reflect a change in our enforcement attitudes or an increased desire to issue citations. I'm just wondering, during the pandemic, I can see knocking on doors and physically interacting with people. We weren't doing that any more than is absolutely necessary, but it would still seem like maybe over the phone that there's still opportunities to be less enforcement oriented and more education oriented.
Definitely, Mayor. We, the communication, as I said, did suffer a little bit there, but one of the things that some of the code officers started to do more on a regular basis was finding emails for people and emailing them. Before, we just used good old-fashioned paper, and we mailed out letters. One of the things that we've had access through for other city databases is we have emails on people, so sometimes if we emailed people, we saw an increased success there also.
Okay, well, I get your, the attitude, which is, we're not, the goal is not to issue a citation, the goal
Absolutely
is to not
not,
issue
Mayor.
a citation.
No,
Correct.
if we were at 100% compliance rate and we didn't have to issue any citations, that would be all right with me.
The goal is compliance.
Right,
So we're trying to get there as the
Absolutely.
least impactful way that we
least
can.
heavy-handed way possible, yeah. Thank you. Vice Mayor.
I have several questions regarding this. First of all, a citation doesn't necessarily mean a fine until later notices, maybe third or fourth. I don't know at what point it kicks in, but just to clarify that.
Mayor and Vice Mayor Duff, to answer that question, if we were to give somebody a citation and they contacted us a month later and said, hey, I finally cut down the dead tree, I finally got the junk car out of the driveway, we dismiss the citation. Yeah, as always, our goal is compliance, and only until if they, time after time, don't get us that compliance that it ends up in a fine.
Okay, so is there a fee attached from the get-go, from the first time?
The very first
citation?
one, no, there is not.
No.
We send out that violation letter telling them, hey, here's your violation, that education. We do two things to try and educate them, which is the one, we mail out the notice of violation letter, and two, we leave that notice of inspection on their door.
Right. And how about it goes into the fine mode? They don't have the ability, money or ability to correct the problem, and it goes into the fine situation. What do we do? Do we have some CDGB dollars? Do we have any funding that we do have a budget and code, don't we, to help people who don't have the resources to correct the problem?
We do not have anything set aside in our budget for
Okay.
assistance at this time, no.
Can we do that?
But
I mean, what do we do when some people can't literally correct the problem?
So we come across this occasionally. And we really came across it a lot and were able to correct the situation pre-COVID, where we had banks of volunteer, that we had a group of volunteers who would go out and help us, and we would identify them during our projects. We come across a disabled individual, an elderly individual, somebody who has a tree that's gonna cost $4,000 to remove a dead tree. If people don't have that resources, we had groups of volunteers that we could call on, either through our police department, through our neighborhood outreach program. Actually, through ASU, we had a wonderful group of volunteers that would come out and clean up property for us. That it was another byproduct of COVID this year that we weren't able to have those programs operating for us.
Do you find a majority of the properties are homeowner or are rental properties, or do you have any feel for what the division of code compliance issues are as far as ownership of the homes or rental properties?
Well, Mayor and Vice Mayor Duff, I will tell you, we necessarily don't keep track of that. I can tell you that it is a concern for our staff that on rental properties, or what we call them income properties, where we see ongoing code violations there. If you're a homeowner and you need assistance from us, we're extremely flexible. We work with homeowners all the time. Less likely to get that same level of cooperation if you are, you own 30 income properties and you're just cashing a check each month and not trying to upkeep your property and giving your residents a nice place to live.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of your photos were multifamily, rental properties. And last question, how do you choose the neighborhoods in which you do the beautification programs? Or you take sections of neighborhoods and
Correct.
go through door by door?
Yes, Mayor and Vice Mayor Duff. We sit down with the code staff very early in the year. We usually do it during the summertime, during our off-season, and we'll look at areas that we think. And each code officer has to bring us 3 specific areas that they want to do a project in the year. And we'll evaluate them as a staff and make our determination from there. We've also, we'll seek input from neighborhood outreach or even council staff to say, hey, is there an area in your specific district that you would like us to focus on also?
So it's selected according to priority in which you feel there is a need?
Correct.
For correction. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Freeman?
Thank you, Ryan, or Lieutenant Russell, for, I just want to give a shout out to code compliance. I mean, your officers and staff have done a remarkable job, especially in my district. I've worked with you and walked the streets and helped you clean up stuff. And the ASU, you brought the ASU students, volunteers, and just networking and doing things for people in need is phenomenal. I guess the Vice Mayor brought up a question that I started thinking about. Chris, are there any dollars that we can use for their budget to shore up any of these service projects that there might be budgets for, like CDBG monies or something like that, to help, maybe a small amount of money to help offset some costs? And, I'm just kind of playing on what you brought up.
So I guess my question, Mayor and Councilman, is when we say, it depends on what the cost is. I don't know how far we can go on private property with city dollars. So I don't know if it's paying, are you asking us to pay for equipment, or are you asking us to pay for personnel? Or I guess I don't know what the ask is.
Well, Lieutenant, is there any specific, I don't want to put you in the hot seat with the city manager, but you're used to hot stuff, right? But I'm saying, okay, we have a service project and we need something removed, and yes, it's on private property, or and we have a need, just as we do the home rehabs with CDBG monies.
So Mayor and Councilman Freeman, to answer that.
Am I making this complicated?
No, and it's a simple question is, we do have CDBG dollars. They're just not part of our code budget. So if we have a citizen that would qualify for that program, we refer them over to our housing department and they work through it that way.
Right.
But we don't specifically, when I answer that question, we don't have any specific dollars in our code budget.
But he has access to,
Yes.
if he needs them for that project.
So I guess, but these people who might need immediate service are placed on a list, and I don't know how fast that they might be helped in their certain situation with a code issue. In other words, sometimes we shift them over to the housing program, and what happens after? They get taken care of right away, or is it on a timeline?
Well, I mean, Ryan's going to know because he's bird dogging the project. so-
We do. So they get referred over there. Unfortunately, those dollars get used up quickly earlier in the year. So it definitely, we see if we can get those referrals in the fall when there's still budget dollars left,
So
that
those
we've
would-
seen some
yeah.
success there.
So those dollars are competing, remember, it's just a specific pot
Right.
for home improvements. So some of those pots of dollars, remember, those are the same pots of dollars that are building ramps for someone to have ADA access into their homes. And so it's, but, I mean, I think we'll work with Ryan, work with housing. If if that becomes a problem during the year, we'll look for other options. But as far as just specifically saying CDBG, yes, they're available. It sounds like Ryan's be able to use them, but again, they're also programmed to help people build stairs to get up to their house or ramps to get into their home. So that's a lot of those kind of improvements.
I see Natalie coming. I just wondered if there was an idea of how much money that would help
I
you.
don't think it's
Is that-
been that we would just, if it comes to that point where we have a public safety need of a tree or something that's in a way, we're going to figure it out. Whether it's through volunteers, because we're not talking about lots of money.
No, we're not.
So I'm not, the resourcing I'm not worried about.
Okay.
Mayor, Councilmember Freeman, I just wanted to let you know, because the rehab budget that we have in the housing department, that always gets spent very quickly. There's a lot of need out there. So the list that you were talking about is absolutely real. But this year, we were able to basically double that budget. So we've seen the need, and we were able to do that. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that there will be some additional resources this year based on our recommendations and you guys saying yes to them.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd just like to make one comment on that, that if there is someone who is, income qualified, in need of desperate dollars, and sometimes if it's just 100, 200, 300, we find the dollars. We don't want to find someone when they don't have the ability, and we can always figure out a way for a few $100s, I think, to work out.
I don't think you're going to find that we've ever done that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think it's,
Yeah.
you heard Ryan, and I think it comes from his PD experience. When we have the chronic income properties, that's where they're going to spend most of their time. It's not on the individual
Yeah.
who can't pay. Ryan will bend over backwards with his staff. I mean, they'll go call Mr.
Correct,
Freeman,
Mayor.
have him bring his
Right.
tractor out if they have to.
Right,
so.
we want to stand
And
for our
vice, we
residents.
wouldn't, it doesn't do us any good to serve somebody a citation and fine them if they don't have the money to abate that problem themselves. So we work with them on those and try and get the resources
It's the income
available.
properties, you'll hear
Yeah,
it
the
be more
income
aggressive.
properties, I know, are a huge problem. I know they are in my district.
Yes.
So thank you for all your work on that.
Thank you. All right, we'll continue.
Mayor, I have a quick question.
Yes, Mr.
Or a response to that too is, we used to do, every year we had, every year we did Make a Difference Day in Mesa. Of course, we didn't do that last year with the pandemic that was going on, but, I think there's opportunities, at least in my district, what we've been doing is trying to put volunteers together for those exact situations where there's somebody that needs help and they don't have the funding to do it. We can find volunteers in the community. So why not have a Make a Difference Day every day in Mesa? Why does it have to be one day? So I would challenge Ryan and say, if you draw someone that needs help, let's reach out to our volunteer pool across the city and see if we can put some Boy Scouts together, or if we can just put some citizens together that can come out and help clean up and help the citizens, help each other.
Go back one. So just back to our stats here from our Team Up to Clean Up projects. Once again, it's a partnership between several city departments, but Solid Waste being our major partner on that, they pretty much give us the resources through all of our dumpsters and our what we call our cleanup days on Saturdays, where we go out there and help residents clean their properties. They give us those dumpsters, which is really a key component. We did 2,300 properties in every single council district. We did have that over 90% compliance rate. And we are anticipating upwards of 200 tons of debris we removed. I don't know, can we play this? See if this works here. Nope, okay. All right, next one. So this is some of our before and after pictures. We talked a little bit about, in our first 2 years doing this, very traditional residential models we did. We went into neighborhoods with just residential. This year, we kind of chose areas that had some more of our smaller apartment complexes, our fourplexes, those income properties. And to be very frank, I was concerned going into this that we weren't going to have the kind of success that we saw in the residential. But it's been just the opposite. We've asked some of those income property owners to take some of their profits, some of their equity they've developed in these properties and reinvested in it. And so this would be one here. What we see very commonly is the parking lot asphalts are cracked, and then this one had a dead tree. And this was afterwards. They resealed their parking lot, removed the dead tree. This one is actually in District 4 right here. And this was a small apartment complex in District 1 from one of our projects that, as you can see, was in very poor condition. We reached out to the property owners, and it didn't take a lot, but it got it looking really good here. And the next one, same complex here also. So same thing, if we get the resources out to them, even the multi-residential properties we're seeing success at. This is just a residential property from District 3 right here that I wanted to highlight. This is somebody that had a dirt front yard, and at the end of it, they ended up putting a pretty nice landscaping in. Illegal dump cleanups, we're partnering with transportation. This is their program, but one of the things we work with both our police department in identifying these and transportation. This was one from actually down District 5 where we came across this and transportation, very quick response, went out there and cleaned it up for us, but kind of a few of the things that we're identifying. So those impacts to our budget, which was the increased civil hearing fees, our increased service fees, and we won't be able to offset those issues with our vacancy savings, but our revenues have increased. And this right here, I wanted to share this also. So these are our complaints for the year. 2 years ago, we were at roughly 81% of our complaints came from citizens. And that is when council provided us extra bodies with the direction to go out and do more proactive work. As you can see, our code enforcement now generates roughly 30% of our workload internally, proactively. So I wanted to come back and share that with council that we are doing more proactive work. Our citizen response are roughly 65% of our cases now come from citizen response. Any more questions?
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
I have to find, okay, on, I guess just your second slide. I think you kind of already went over this, so I'm sorry, I just want to clear it up in my head. But you talked about the increase, so there's the terms other services and then commodities. And you mentioned the process server and the civil hearings. Is that what that is?
And that's our fleet costs also, I believe, in there, in our other services.
Under other services, because those were pretty big increases right there, so I was just trying to.
They were, our process server increased their fees, as well as the number of citations that we served was an increase also. And then our civil hearing officer, she saw a drastic increase in the number of hearings we do also.
Okay, and so were those increases related to COVID at all, or no?
I think you could probably say that our increase in citation had some COVID because of our customer service model, which resulted down the line with our increased number of civil hearings and increased service fees.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I'll mention too, and Ryan, I think you mentioned this once before, residents became a lot more aware of their neighborhoods and the condition of their neighborhoods during COVID. Exactly. So we did see, it almost sounds like, well, wait a minute, COVID would keep it dropping. It actually, I think it caused, we saw more eyes on their neighborhood, and so just being in their neighborhood longer. Ryan, am I misquoting that, or is that correct?
No, correct there, Mr. Brady. We did see an increase during certain months. They were nice during Christmas time and certain holidays, but our citizens, when they were home working out of their home, they did see that their neighbors, hey, my neighbor's got a lot of weeds in his yard, and they would call us. So we did see an increase in our overall cases.
Okay, I thought I remembered you telling me something about that when we went on our ride-along, because it's kind of surprising for it to increase this much, because, you know, a lot of the other budgets went down during COVID, but that makes sense when people were home. They're looking and noticing things that they were too busy to notice before. Okay.
Frankie?
Question on staffing, how many code officers do y'all have? And then has that had an effect on, I know a couple years ago, the beats or zones that you call them, quite large for each of the code officers. So has that had any effect on the beats or zones of each code officer?
So we currently have 13 code officers. We did have the one vacancy savings for the entire year, but our other code officers that we assigned in the surrounding areas, we had them work in that area also, so everybody took a little piece of the pie. We have a total staff of 16 altogether with 13 code officers and then our 2 supervisors. I would say our beats, we'll call them, our work areas, they're what I would say is sufficient. I don't think they're overly large or too small for them to work. I think based on kind of the areas that they're in, we may shrink or increase their sizes a little bit. Areas, Eastmark maybe doesn't need as much code compliance present as another area of the town would. So, but I'm satisfied with the sizes of our areas.
Excuse me, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Luna, any comments, questions? All right. Well,
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you for your good presentation. Thank you for the good work you're doing. Appreciate it. Next item on our agenda is to acknowledge committee minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Vice Mayor and Ms. Spilsbury. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is current event summaries, meetings and conferences attended. Who would like to go first? Vice Mayor and then Ms. Spilsbury?
Yeah, yes. Last Thursday, I did a tour of the Emergency Rental and Utility Assistance Program with Councilmember Luna. I want to thank Ruth Giese and Mary Brandon for giving us a tour, and all the staff that have worked tirelessly in finding the, filling out the application, looking at the applications, making sure they're filled out correctly, and getting the emergency dollars to people who need the utility and rental assistance. So thank you to the entire staff.
Thank you.
And I wanted to thank Frank McCrae and his staff for giving me a tour of the electric and gas utility systems. That is an impressive tour. My mind was blown for 2 hours hearing about, they could have been speaking Chinese to me, but it was really neat, and it's an incredibly complex system, and it's amazing. We just take it all for granted. It's really impressive. And then also today, I wanted to thank Andrea and Mark and Beth and her engineering staff for giving me and Councilmember Freeman a tour of the old Federal Building, which will be the new Post building. And that was exciting to see and to envision what great events will be happening at that building. It's a really cool space with great history there. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, we're all looking forward to the Post coming online, I think. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say I was able Friday to attend the Arizona Congressional District 5 Annual Art Competition hosted by Congressman Andy Biggs, and there were 15 students from Mesa that were participants there, and that was at the Chandler, their art center, which was a pretty neat place, and appreciated going there. And then Saturday, you and I went to the Aloha Island Market Fair May Day celebration, and Polynesian, they are celebrating every day in May as a Polynesian, some type of celebration. So we also met Jason Wong, who's chairman of the Asian Corporate and Entrepreneur Leadership Committee. And he was there supporting our Polynesian businesses in our community. And it was a fun time there. And I'm sure you gave a great talk there and inspired people. So thank you.
Well, so later this month, we will be issuing a proclamation acknowledging that the month of May is AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander Appreciation Month. So it is, I don't think it's coincidental, maybe it is, that we are seeing a lot of activity in our AAPI community in our city. And I had, in addition to the event I went with you to Mr. Freeman on Saturday evening, I was at a banquet where Mayor Hartke from Chandler and I were, it was at kind of an East Valley AAPI community event. So it's great to see more and more of those, particularly in the context that we're seeing nationally of the unprovoked attacks on members of the AAPI community, and the need for us to be very vigilant in expressing our appreciation and the importance of all of the communities in our city, and particularly the AAPI community right now. So thank you for like I say, this month is an opportunity for us all to be particularly mindful of that community. Other comments or questions from council? Mr.
Mayor?
Yes.
Real quick.
Please.
Let me get to my notes. Last Thursday, I also participated in a HELO meeting. Of course, I'm the chair of the membership committee, and so we had a wonderful meeting talking about COVID-19 and how it affects communities of color. So it was a great meeting. Also, on Thursday, I want to encourage you to visit the Arizona Museum of Natural History. I am the liaison, and they do have life-size replicas of dinosaurs they're creating. And they have a very, very talented in-staff member that's creating these wonderful dinosaurs. The exhibition is going to be opening this summer in July. So I do want to encourage you, to all my council colleagues, to get a tour. The museum is incredible, and what they're doing there is incredible, and it's very exciting what's going to be happening in July. But they are willing to give you a tour to see the kind of activities and the dinosaurs they're creating. So it's going to be a lot of fun for kids, so I'm looking forward to that. Also, Boeing had a STEM signing day, which celebrated high school students from across the country who chose to pursue STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and mathematics education at technical programs and at 2- and 4-year colleges. And again, I want to thank Vice Mayor Duff. We did have the opportunity to visit the city's emergency rental utility assistance program, and we want to congratulate Mary as well as Ruth for running such a smooth operation. So, and then of course Thursday last week I did have an opportunity to go visit the We Run Mesa program at Eagles Park to celebrate and cheer on those children that are learning to be healthy and active. So that's pretty much it, Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Council, anything else on this agenda item? If not, Mr. Brady, what does our schedule of future meetings look like?
Thank you, Mayor. As we wrap up the budget, just remind you that there were 3 departments that we had scheduled to make presentations, but we've provided you the PowerPoint presentations, so you have those in your packet. Then Thursday, we'll be doing a budget wrap-up. It will also include a few other items from a variety of different departments of some improvements that are being suggested, but without necessarily the department's full presentation. So that'll come to you on Thursday. So we will see you next Thursday, May 6th at 7:30, and then that will be followed by an Audit and Finance Committee meeting at 8 a.m. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I know we need to get upstairs and start our next meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Freeman, seconded by Ms. Spilsbury. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. We are adjourned.